I'm Brad Hutchings. This is the Break It Down show.
Yeah.
Did I do that right, Pete?
Thank you for watching the Break It Down show is the technical thing that we say, but you know what?
I'm sorry.
I always say no, but I always say
like
do whatever you want.
More of a guest than a pest at this point, but I should have that down.
Yes, it's true. More of a guest than a pest. That's all right, though.
A pest than a guest. That's what it was. I'm sorry. I screwed that up.
You are not off to a great start.
Not at all.
And yet, you know what? Perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, so I wanted to have you on because I wanted to talk. We were talking about AI and the things that are possible with it, things that aren't possible, what we believe on the layperson side, what you think on the expert side. And I know you don't like being called an expert, but look, from my point of view, you are an expert. And the people who are going to shape and change this thing are people like you who understand how these machines work and can explain to someone like me who's got a business, like, when do I need to use this thing and what's the best application of it? And you and I've had a lot of these conversations and we're still trying to like sort out and this three-dimensional, all of a sudden you realize we're like that as well, right? And so I think it's helpful for people to hear maybe some use cases and what we think it is right now and what does AI look like?
Yeah, so I would say I'm a reluctant expert. I have been searching for what the right application is, the right way to use these systems is for quite a while. I engage with a lot of people, some adversarially, some just trying to figure out what their view on this is, and how applicable it is to things. I understand the technical aspects at a very, very low level. I've actually implemented some AI systems that you can use on your own computer. Pete, you've seen them, and I need to get those on your computer that you're looking at right now. I have one that's on my computer with the, right behind the camera there, and we'll look at that a little later in the day. But yeah, this is the big question of the day. Everybody knows about OpenAI. Lots of people pay money for accounts. There are lots of questions about what the right applications are for it. The short answer is creative things are good. Analytical things don't work, but it'll still tell you it does, right? So, so we got to navigate that. And
there's a couple of questions I have. I want to jump in because one of the things engineers seem to think they can do is eliminate someone's job, right? And it seems to result in more spam. Like I get more nonsensical emails. I'm like, who are you talking to?
Right.
And so there's that. And then the other thing is engineers never seem to turn themselves into an obsolete person in these things. Like, oh, well, marketing is going to be a click like this. You're just going to describe something.
Yeah. We're just going to do it with a machine now. It's funny. These systems are not intelligent. They can spit out sentences that make sense. They can spit out paragraphs that kind of make sense. And they can spit out even essays that kind of make sense. Plausible, right? But they get things like facts incorrect. They get things like details incorrect. They get names wrong. They associate the wrong things. We call that hallucination, thinking, oh, it's making a mistake. Well, actually, it's not making a mistake. It's doing what it's designed to do, which is spit out random sequences of likely words in response to your questions or in response to your cues. Okay, let's get back to, is it going to take your job? AI is not going to take your job. I don't care what you do. AI is not going to take your job. Let's look at the low end. McDonald's tried this with the help of IBM to replace the kids at the drive-thru, who taught you very imperfectly, always screw up your order. And McDonald's is kind of good at it too. We're not talking Jack in the Box where they have the stoners in the drive-thru, trying to take your order. No, we're talking McDonald's. They do a pretty good job. They're not Chick-fil-A. They're not In-N-Out Burger with their drive-thru experience, but they're kind of good. And so IBM came along a couple of years ago with its Watson system and said, hey, McDonald's, we can make these automated. We can have this beautiful, booming male voice that greets the customers. It can be a great customer experience, the whole thing. And a month ago, McDonald's pulled the plug on it, billions of dollars invested in it. And they actually left franchisees with half systems that are half implemented, that half work. McDonald's down from where I'm staying right now, Pete. You and I were there recently, and I told you about this. They greet you with the voice, and then it hands you off to a person. It's the most jarring experience in the world. And that voice doesn't make sense. Like when I go to the drive-thru, I expect to hear a teenager who's got their first job, or maybe it's a young adult who they're not gonna be rocket scientists.
Yeah.
They're earning a wage. They're doing the best they can. And that's what I expect.
I want the same thing, right? Like I always say, like, I don't work here. I don't want to do the ordering part.
Right.
Where's the human, right? And what's great about Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out, where we live, is these young people learned the principles of business. Welcoming someone to the establishment, making sure their order's right, repeating it back to them. All of these things. I don't want a robot to do that. Matter of fact, maybe Watson will figure it out. Maybe
Watson won't figure it out.
I won't go and consume that product because I don't want that experience. I don't want to. I don't work for you. Don't make me work for you. So I went to the Giants game. I actually bought this specific hat, and they're like, "Okay, I'm going to point you to that cashier stand," and I'm like, "There's no cashier there. I don't work here. I'm not responsible. I'm not licensed to use that machine. I would like just a human." They're like, "Oh, you have to wait a little longer." And I'm like, "That's fine." Yeah. And so I went to a human and I said, "I want to buy this hat," and they scanned it and they got paid. And so that's part of this thinking, is that we can take humans out of a human interaction. I love my grocery store because the people there know me. I know them, and we can have conversations. I don't want to just walk out as if nobody else in the world exists. That's not the kind of existence I want. And so even if it is better, or it gets better from where it is now, I'm still going to go further and further from corporations that use those things.
Yeah. And I'm a tech guy, and I hate the self-checkout. I won't use the self-checkout. Used to be a self-checkout enthusiast. I think it's when they took away the plastic bags. I think that's when I sort of drew the line and said, okay, you take away the plastic bags, I'm going to use a person's time and have a conversation with them just to spite you. How about that? Yeah. But, back on the drive-through thing, booming voice, like this booming professional voice. And then, how would you like to order with the app today or whatever else? And I'd hear it and I just think, all right, I'm going to have to mess with you. So I'm just going to be silent, see what you do. Would you like to order with the app, or do you? No. And then it doesn't really know what to do. And, why do you approach me so conversationally? And then I try to have a conversation with you and you don't want to have the conversation. That's what's so fake about it. Let's talk Chat GPT a minute. One of the interesting things that came out about Chat GPT last month is they gave researchers 1 million random sessions from users. So if you think your conversations are private with Chat GPT, oh no, they're not. No, they're not. The researchers got it, and the researchers told us something really weird, which is that 18% of Chat GPT sessions they're sections. That's what they are. It's sex chat. 18%. It's the second most popular use of Chat GPT. And of course, when you post this news and you see everybody react, everybody's horrified that 18% of the world, or 18% of sessions, are sex chats. And then there's people like me that are horrified that they know that.
Clear browser history.
Yeah, but that doesn't help, right? Because your chat history is not in your browser.
Yeah,
it's on a server.
Well, this brings me to a question then, because when we're working on our day-to-day marketing or whatever it is, I'm a spy. I think about threat. You are now exposing your IP, a customer's IP, all of that stuff to anybody.
All of it. When you put it online into the cloud, all of it. And, there used to be an understanding, like with Google Docs and whatever else. Hey, I put it up there and it's private. That was what they delivered to you. They delivered access from, any device that you had in one place, being able to share with people. But privacy was the primary concern. You went there because it was private. And now with AI stuff, we flipped it. So you go and interact, and, who knows what you're interacting with? Who knows who's going to look at it? Who knows if, the researcher might say, hey, Pete's got a great business idea, and he's obviously not very good at expressing it to Chat GPT, but I know how to express it better. And I'm going to go take his idea and compete with the Break It Down show. Right.
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah. Why not? Or just, you've written your screenplay. Yeah. And it's in there, and someone's like, well, no, that's my screenplay. I've got a copy of that. I wrote it.
Yeah. Or they just leak it.
Well, or leak it. But now you have to go to court to defend it. And even if you win, you've lost, And so these things matter. So when you're talking about what you build with your private, I guess, LLM, your private GPT.
Large language model. they call it.
Yeah. So am I able to train this thing, customize, like let's say I'm in the business of, I don't know, putting out press releases, right?
Yeah.
And I've become pretty good at prompts, so I can do a quarter of the work faster now because I have
Right.
this thing. Are you saying that, hey, you should probably have this thing on your computer, and then could I customize, maybe even get a higher, and I'm just making these percentages up. I don't know stuff, Brad, but could I get to 30 or 40% if I was able to train it specifically on 10,000 different press releases?
So let me give you a kind of an overview of how powerful these things are, which is a small model. We'll call it a small LLM, like I can run on my laptop, which is just to throw numbers for people who like the numbers. Let's say it has 7, 8, 9 billion parameters. That's kind of the area I'm talking about here. Does very well with English language tasks, creating things. It has good command of the English language. It can do nice sentences for you. It can do nice paragraphs. You, of course, have been on my fledgling AIO show and read a story. That came up with a story. That's pretty good.
Right.
ChatGPT is on the order of let's call it. You know what? I'm totally making this number up, but let's just call it 150 billion parameters. It's probably like 450 billion. It's like a lot. It's a lot more. It's trained on a lot more data, with a lot more, with a lot more like microphones mic'd up at the data. That's what the parameters are, if you think of it that way. Many more. And really, the real feel of it is that it might feel like it has some more niche knowledge, and real nichey stuff. And it sounds a little more loquacious. So LLM running on my computer is something I would use for everyday marketing everyday conversation, stories for kids, just to come up with a story or a joke or something that I might share with you on a podcast, which I didn't do this time. That sort of thing.
Goodness.
If I go to ChatGPT, I get that maybe freshman English high school essayist who did too much, and when you read her essay, you're just annoyed at her because she like raised the bar in the wrong way for everybody in the class. Like, you got all the facts, you presented it nicely, you have a nice cogent argument, it's a tight essay, and then somebody comes along with all these fancy words and whatever, and you're like, great, that's what you want, really? That's what gets the A+ here? That's silly. That's how it feels, like, comparatively. You have tremendous amount of power in these small 7, 8 billion parameter models.
Okay.
And a tremendous amount of, general knowledge. We have a common friend. He's not doing too great right now, but he encouraged me earlier this summer to learn how HVAC worked, so that we didn't get money sucked from us from the HVAC repair people.
Right.
And the way I approached it is, of course, I went and did some Googling and stuff, and I found all the, you find an article here and you find an article there, and they're all kind of written. Well, they're written by HVAC people. Okay. So I asked my LLM, tell me a story. You're going to love this, about Eeyore and Paul Bunyan repairing an HVAC system. It gets all four components right. It gets the flow of the coolant correct. It gets it mentions the state of the coolant, when it's gas state, when it's liquid state, and how it travels. It mentions what things need to be insulated, what don't. It mentions what can break and what to watch out for. It mentions in fact, it mentioned a common problem that we ran into, which is the evaporator coil freezing over, and why that happens. And this was the Meta Llama 8B. So this is from Facebook people, and it's their open source model that you can go download from Hugging Face and run on your computer. I package it so it's easy to run, but that was able to make that story so that I could understand really easily what was going on.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're taking something, it's almost like a YouTube video process of trying to fix something, but you're just going to an AI instead. And getting an answer. And you're just using that example. You can use something that doesn't work on YouTube, like whatever it's going to be.
Right.
I'm curious. So we talked before also about experiences and AI, and
Mhm.
when we start to play with, and I think you use the term phone booth, like different phone booths of reality, right? So I'm at the Sphere, I'm watching U2's movie of their concert, right? And so
Yes.
when you want to simplify what this is, it's like, oh, you spent a lot of money to watch a movie. Not exactly. This is a premier state of the art venue,
Mhm.
and you have to walk this line individually on, are you watching a movie or are you at a concert? And it's very interesting when I looked around the theater, like how many times during a movie do you start clapping and singing along? Like even if you,
People, yeah, you're
maybe
telling me
if you,
this yesterday. People standing up and singing along with the, and then the thing about them picking up their phones. Tell them that.
yeah.
That's amazing too.
Well, so there's two things I thought about. Something else too. There was a moment where Bono commands people, yeah,
Right.
and he's like, "Hey, turn on your lights because they're going to sing about love." And so they swoop the perspective around for that.
Yeah.
And I was reaching for my phone to participate in a movie,
Right.
right?
It's crazy.
And I wasn't the only person to do this because there's thousands of people in this theater at this time, right? And so this is the reality that I'm sharing with the movie. I'm interacting with this
Right.
movie as if it's real. And I realized something else as I thought about this, and I wrote to some friends about this. Someone next to me was singing, and I was like, is that person singing, or is that the Sphere telling me that someone's singing
Yeah,
next
because
to me?
you got little tweeters right up next to your ears in the seat, right?
Yeah, there's
Like,
there's
yeah.
there's 160,000 speakers in this place, right? So there's speakers everywhere, and they can be very detailed. And so I look, and no shit, that person is singing, and I'm like, okay, I heard that, but that's not the only female voice I hear singing around me. And so it's not just so I have blended. I can't tell what's real anymore. And the other thing about the phones is, so I was at the concerts, the live concerts, and of course there's people up there with their phones above their head, and they're recording almost the whole thing, and oftentimes
Right.
for minutes and minutes at hand, at a short session. So you have to picture this is going on all around you, and maybe, I wouldn't say half the crowd, but a good portion of the crowd is doing that. When they show the crowd in the movie, you can see them, and they're sort of there, but they're not there. I mean, they draw your attention every now and then because you're looking at everything. Like it's such a
Right.
smorgasbord of input. But I noticed that they had made virtual phones, and that they would blink on and blink off, almost like Christmas lights. Another part of the crowd, they would turn on and off. So it represented what had actually happened, but it wasn't what you were seeing. You weren't seeing an actual phone recording the band. You were seeing the representation of that. And so then I had to think, are those people even there? Are
Right.
those actual? And so you start to wonder what's real and what's not real, like what's been invented by an AI. It's like put a crowd in this thing, with people wearing dark clothes or whatever it is. And it gives you a version of it that is not quite real, but real enough if you're not paying attention.
Oh, and whether it's AI or not, whether it's just filmography, standard filmography and standard sound stuff,
Sure.
what's
Sure.
invented or not, and what you're participating in there, Pete, is, and this is the magic of it, is the illusion that all these media together in that space can bring you, and
Mm,
you're appreciating that illusion. And
yeah.
the reason I go over to illusionists is, this is how I'm starting to see AI, or at least
Okay.
the AI that we have today, and that
Yeah.
is, I can explain to you, I can demonstrate for you at the low level how these machines work, how it predicts one word at a time and creates an
Mm,
answer out of it. And then I can
okay.
tell you, I can promise you that anything that anyone tells you that AI can do, whether it's write, a program for you that displays 5 temperature gauges on your phone, or whether it purports to summarize your documents, or
Right.
whether it can take 1,000 pages of medical information and tell you what's wrong with the patient. By the way, it can't. And
Yeah. Yeah.
summarizing your documents doesn't work very well. It certainly doesn't work well as people talk about, or people talk about chatting with their documents. This is a big business application. That is absolute snake oil. But what I can do is I can ask the developer of those things, okay, hey, what's the illusion you're trying to present here? Because at the base level, it all works like this. So what are you building on top of that to sort of present that it's doing something else? By the way, chat itself, where I talk and then the computer talks to me, actually, it's an illusion. That one I will demonstrate for you when we get to the demo point. That's a really interesting, an interesting demo. But everything is an illusion. And if we're, when you talk about illusionists, magicians, and whatever, we can go in and we can enjoy a show without, believing that it's happening outside of physics or outside the laws of the world, that there's sleight of hand, and we can appreciate that sleight of hand, even though we're like being lied to, right?
Yeah.
We can appreciate the craft. We can appreciate the art. I think that's what you're saying when you're starting to become aware of that in the sphere with this U2 thing. That's what you're seeing. You're starting to appreciate the illusion. And what I'm saying with AI is we should appreciate the illusion where it is. That's how, and we should try to understand what that illusion is, because that protects us from when these illusions are weaponized against us.
Okay.
For applications that don't work or applications that are very expensive. You said, hey, could I train it on all my documents and then get good answers from it? The answer is it would be very, very expensive, and your training wouldn't actually be that great. You might train it, your results, if you had your chats or your search results before when it knew nothing about your documents and it just is kind of an English processor, you'd be surprised how good it is at giving you an answer on documents it doesn't know anything about. And then you train it on your documents and you run those same questions, and you'd be surprised how little difference there is in the answers. That it's what it's good at is it's good at English. And there's, a lot of, you probably know a lot of people like that who are good at English. They're good speakers. You could give them any topic that there's no possible way they could know anything about. They latch on to one or two little things, one or two little details that maybe you'd said 5 or 10 minutes ago, and suddenly they're an expert. Which, of course, getting back to my introduction, why I'm a reluctant expert. There's a lot of people with, who are AI experts right now who couldn't even tell you how it worked.
Yeah. So so the expertise thing, this industry is changing fast, and when I think about AI, you start to we're just using different words for the same thing. My blender is an artificially intelligent thing. If I tell it to make soup, it makes the liquid hot. If I tell it to crush ice, it crushes ice. It's not smart, right? It's running a program. And so this sort of a same thing. Do you have
like an electronic blender with like display and stuff, or you still got the old school?
It's a Vitamix. You just twist the knob.
Oh, okay.
Whatever,
all right.
Yeah. And this is not a complex machine. It's a motor.
Mechanics.
Powerful motor. Yeah. But it's AI, right? Like it figures out what you want to do, and it'll run a program. Whatever, right? And I'm not telling it to do that. I'm certainly not moderating it on the throttle, which is really what that thing is. So there's all kinds of AI around us. And so it gets a little bit scary at times, but other times you're like, we've been dealing with this, like I can tell my remote control or my phone, hey Siri, I did yesterday, hey Siri, call Brad, right? And all of a sudden it's like, which Brad do you want? A lot of Brads. And I'm like, I didn't think about that. Thanks for reminding me. So I'm trying to drive and not look at my phone, right? So there's a lot of these AIs that do things, and I guess I'm bringing this back around because, it's easy to get nervous about this stuff, and it's easy to think, oh my gosh, this is a new thing, but it's really not new. It's not. We've got a lot of things that are artificially intelligent, and they do a very simple thing. Like our cars are welded together by robots, right? So let's not be too scared of it, but let's also understand what it can do. So let's say that I am, I don't know. Let's say I'm an author of any kind, whatever it is. Maybe I'm a technical author, maybe I'm a fiction author, and I want to use this program to condense my notes and help me crunch through and analyze some of the things. Like let's say I go and I drive around town. As I'm driving from here to there, I spend an hour talking to my robot about something that I want to write. And then I just get that transcribed, and I'm like, okay, robot, start telling me of these, 10,000 words that I've said. Give me a synopsis. That seems like that's pretty easy.
It will certainly give you a synopsis. Will it give you a good synopsis? The more you have in there, the worse the summary is going to be. And it's just because these systems don't do that. These LLMs, they do not summarize. They shorten is what they do. Now, when you ask it to summarize and it gives you an answer, and it doesn't say, hey, I'm not good at summarizing, it just gives you an answer which is shorter.
Right.
You say,
Right.
oh, that's a good summary. And you know what? If your content sort of is homogeneous density, meaning, you know, your facts are like every 3 sentences or whatever else, as it shortens, as it picks stuff, you know, linearly going through it, that's probably going to be a good summary. If the main point of what you've been talking about is an aside 6 paragraphs in, it's going to miss it. Right. And then here's the other thing you could do. When you ask these systems to do something, you're asking for, you may think you're getting the answer, but you're asking for an answer. And what it's actually giving you is a plausible answer. And so sort of the right way to frame that is, I'm going to ask it 10 times and I'm going to get 10 different answers. And which answer is the one that I want? So have it summarize your document 10 times and see how you do with that. Right. And you're going to be like, well, wait a minute. Why did you give me this summary? It sounds just as good as this summary, but it's got different things in it. That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So I get what you're saying. And I guess I want to ask this. So if I come to you and I'm like, hey, Brad, help me build an LLM, a small LLM. Right. And I want to work on a specific project, but I really love how, let me look at an author up here on my shelf. I really love how Stephen Dorrell writes.
Right.
My headphones fell off. Stephen Dorrell. I love how Stephen Dorrell writes. And I would love to train this thing on his writing. Is
he a popular author? Is he popular?
No,
He could know who he is.
No, he wrote this gigantic book about MI6. Right? Can you see that?
Okay,
Yeah,
I can see it. I can see
it.
Yeah,
he's written a bunch of academic articles. He's a professor, right? So I just picked a guy from my shelf up here. We could pick other people, but yeah. So could I take my small scale private LLM and go, okay, now that I've taught it what Stephen Dorrell does in his style, could I then take the things that I've created? We talked about the summaries, that kind of thing. But could I take that and turn it into something that has a little more Stephen in it than it does Pete? Because I write like a dick. On my first pass, I'm like, what an asshole, you know?
So this gets into, I would say this gets into intellectual property issues tangentially. And let me tell you what the hot one is right now, is that there are lots of authors that are suing OpenAI, and they're suing the companies that make these private LLMs, and they're saying, you trained on our books without our authorization. And the defense for that, there's one common defense, which is fair use. Wow, how does my LLM in my head forget that for a second? It's a fair use defense, and it's that you can use people's content for all sorts of things, academic things, transformative things, whatever else. And it's up to the courts to sort that out. And the courts generally like the idea of people being able to use content, not being locked down just because they bought a book.
Right.
So there's that. Okay. But the interesting thing in that debate is if I take an LLM like ChatGPT, and I say, okay, I don't know what it's been trained on. It's probably been trained on, let's say, for example, all of J.K. Rowling's or all of Tom Clancy's novels. And so if I talk to it about J.K. Rowling's novels, Harry Potter, or I talk to it about Jack Ryan, it's got it can kind of make a plausible Harry Potter-ish story or a Jack Ryan-ish story. By the way, derivative works, not fair use. This is on you for asking it, but it, of course, could spit these out. Whether they're short story form or there are a few sentences or whatever, even a review technically is, you could get you dragged in court. All that aside, it can spit these out. Now, let's say there were a way that I could untrain that large LLM like ChatGPT from J.K. Rowling and Tom Clancy. It turns out I can't untrain them. There's no operation to untrain. There's no operation to like drain the gas tank once you've filled it. And it's just
right.
The people who invented these things didn't think of that, okay? And they didn't figure out how to make that mathematically sound. So let's say I retrained it again on all of that training data. By the way, that might cost me $100 million. But this time I omit the actual works of J.K. Rowling and Tom Clancy. And then I say, hey, I'd like you to write me a story about like with Harry Potter and Eeyore and Paul Bunyan doing whatever, or Jack Ryan and my dogs Mona and Johnny doing whatever, right? And I'd like you to write me a story about those things. And guess what? It'll still write you a story. Why is that? And this is the question we've got to ask. This is like the Tucker Carlson question. Why is that? Right? But no, we have to ask this. We have to ask, why is that? And the reason it is because there's so much other content written about these characters. There's fan fiction websites. There are reviews. I mean, there's cliff notes. There's academic papers written about Harry Potter. There's academic papers written about Tom Clancy stuff. There's military papers written about Tom Clancy stuff. Tom Clancy came to prominence because Red October was like in a briefing to Ronald Reagan. You know, he didn't, you know, he's like this author. He's like super interested in all these geeky things. And then the president gets in a briefing. I mean, you know, how weird is that, right? But the point is there's a lot more people talking about these things than the authors. And that's the training data, if you will, that gives these machines context on these. The books themselves don't matter. So when you say, hey, if I feed it this book and I ask it to write something in this style, I'm going to guess if it didn't know about it before, it's not going to know much more about it after you train it on the book. By the way, that training is pretty expensive. You could spend thousands of dollars doing what do they call it? A phase of training. There's a phase of training. It's not on my tongue right now. It's not. There's another term which is RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Has nothing to do with this. You wouldn't go down that path. Lots of AI people would because they could bill for it. That would do you absolutely no good. So don't bother. But fine tuning is the word. You could fine tune with that book. It would make no difference because the model is so. See, here's the thing, right? When you have an 8 billion parameter model, that book itself. How many words do you think are in a book, Pete? A few thousand.
No, like 70,000 words, 100,000 words are common for like a fiction or like a biography.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then a lot of those words are repeat. So how many unique words are in that book? What do you think? Maybe 4,000 unique words or what?
Yeah. There's lots of ands and thes and that kind of thing. Sure.
Yeah. And then maybe take the pairs of them and stuff. And you think, okay, well, you know, a couple thousand times a couple thousand is like 4 million. You might affect 4 million parameters if you're lucky in this 8 billion parameter model. With your one book, it's not going to move the needle on anything. It's, you know, it's I don't know what to, it's a cup of water in a lake, you know, comparatively it's, or, you know, or maybe it's an ice tray in Lake Berryessa on a low year. You would get that. Yeah. So
I seriously track Lake Berryessa water levels all winter long. I am fascinated by it, so I appreciate that reference.
Hey, we used to go up there every other weekend with our boat. Our boat our boat sank at Lake Berryessa once. Yeah. So yeah, I know, and I taught my best friend how to fish at Lake Berryessa. Right. He brought the beer. I brought the fishing gear.
Yeah. But so you're saying it's going to make a very small difference.
Very small difference. Yeah. The training, the fine tuning, all that other stuff. What it's mostly good for is for the language. You know, again, remember what I said, your small LLMs that can run on your laptop, whatever, 8 billion parameters. They're good at the language that you and I use.
Right.
ChatGPT with its 150 billion, 400 billion, whatever number it is, it's a little more loquacious and it's got some niche knowledge. Like ChatGPT probably knows your guy. Now, have a lot of articles and discussion been done on his work? Is there like a fan forum for him, or is it just a book and it's on an academic press and you happen to have it because he's on your podcast one day?
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, he's not widely published on a lot of things, but this book in particular is got a lot of words in it. It's probably 250,000 words in that book. You know,
but guess what? You could tell either of these models, write me a paragraph in the style of his name. And it's going to write you a paragraph. Now, in the style of his name may have been, maybe like throwaway there because it doesn't know. It is still going to write you that paragraph and present it to you like it thinks that's the style.
Yeah. So when we're talking about things and you're in the marketplace and people are
Mhm.
approaching you saying, here's what thing that we want this thing to do. And I imagine they're pretty far down the road on
Mhm.
what the future looks like based
Mhm.
upon their like, this is what this thing's going to do. And you're going to have to walk them back to reality land. We've had this conversation quite a lot. Like
Absolutely.
we're going
It's
to
not
be able to, yeah,
yeah,
right.
it's not comfortable. Like, you got a good friend who tells you, "Hey, I'm going to evaluate all these business records and determine what happened, who cheated me in my business." And I got to tell them, "Yeah, that doesn't work. We don't have that right now. What you need is a business forensic analyst. That's a person, and you're going to pay
Right.
them. You're going to pay them, higher rates than you're paying your best lawyer because they're very, very specialized, and the
Right.
value that they're looking at to protect for you is very high. You're not going to get this out of, call it 20 cents, out of your of queries on Chat GPT. That is just not
Yeah.
going to happen. Let's go back to
Right.
the is it going to take your job thing because I didn't completely answer that. And I
Okay.
think I could tell you with 100% no quivering, no wavering or whatever else. AI will not take your job. I don't care what you do right now. AI will not take your job. However,
Yeah. No.
your boss thinking that AI could take your job may negotiate your price down, or they
Yeah.
may just say, "You suck. I'm tired of dealing with human beings. I'm tired of dealing with your problems. I'm tired of you guys not wanting to return to work. Forget it. You're all fired. I'll do it with AI, and we'll just see what happens." That'll happen.
We will see
We
what
will.
happens.
That's happening. That's happening right now.
Yeah.
And Intuit basically kind of did that in two steps where they
Yeah.
fired 10% of their workforce for being underperformers, and then they said, "Hey, we're gonna have all this work done by AI." So
Yeah.
they probably were fired by AI.
Yeah.
Not gonna
It's
work out for them.
one of the things I have, because I know a lot of people who do a lot of different professional things. One of them was it won't replace me, but it will force me to do more work. It will increase my pace of work. And so, and this person was a doctor, but they were basically saying, I will spend less time with patients, but I will churn more billable things through because I've got this AI thing to help me do this particular job. I'm still going to have to do my job, but I'll just have less time for people.
It's even worse than that, Pete, because
Oh, that's good.
I'll tell you why it's worse than that. It's because if AI is smart, and there's a lot of people who think that AI is smart, they're misinformed. Okay. But they
Yeah.
think, well, AI is smarter than the human being. It's something the human being needs to use AI to verify their work. Or if you're working with AI, then I trust you. If you're working alone, then I think you're a lone wolf. Totally irrational things to think. But those are
Right.
those are actually cementing themselves in the marketplace. So
Yeah.
now instead of just doing your work, you have to do your work with AI to prove that your work is done right. Makes no sense, but it's
Right.
also this is also processes that we're putting in business right now. It's terrible.
Yeah. 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 I mean, the on the image rendering, when you do that, there seems to be, and maybe you can explain why this is. Let's say that I want to make a picture of, whatever. I did this the other day. I wanted to make a picture of Oral Hershiser based upon a
Mhm.
picture in a moment of a game from his 1988 season. And I wanted to do it in a charcoal style. So we have the picture, we have the medium, we have all these different things. And every time I tried to tweak it, it would forget what it had already done. And all of a sudden I'm like,
Mhm.
no, revert back to the old one, like where his hand looked like the one in the picture. I didn't say change the hand. I said, whatever, like make his pants blue or whatever it is, right?
Right.
And it's like, okay. And you get like, now he's got 3 eyes. Like, how did you change the
Well,
eyes? Don't
I
change.
mean, first and
It's
first and
yeah,
foremost, if you start with a short prompt and you're like Oral Hershiser in this particular game, and
yeah,
remember I said before, ask it 10 times, you're going to get 10 different answers. So
right.
this is
Yeah,
your base picture. So now you need to kind of chain these together of, yes, use this particular picture. You need a prompt to get that particular picture. Now I'd like it in a charcoal style. All right, let's do that. Now I got it in a charcoal style, and charcoal, you can do all sorts of different directions. You can do up and down. You can do diagonally. You could do swirly in a charcoal style. So maybe I have to specify that to get exactly the one that I want. And then even when I
yeah,
specify to get the one that I want, it still gives me 10 options. I've got to tell it which of the 10
right,
options I want to do the next piece.
right. Yeah,
Right. So your prompt gets longer and longer and longer. So to
Yeah.
use that effectively, you've got to be a prompt jockey, they call them, to be able to use that effectively and drill down to what you want.
Mm.
I think it's cute if
But
you
do
can
you
do
get
that.
what you want? Do you get what you
No,
want, or do you
no, you have.
compromise on what you want?
If you're effective with it, you compromise. You know where to Otherwise, you're going to sit there for hours and hours, and you're going to, if you're paying by the image generation, which you are if you're using the API, you're going to rack up bills, and they're happy with that.
Yeah. Well, and so I'd paid for a AI editing thing to edit clips for me and summarize these clips.
How'd
And
that
I'll
work
be
out?
damned, it does all that stuff, but it all sucks. And they're like, hey, Pete, let me check this out, Pete. We have picked the perfect clip, and this thing is going to go bananas. And I'm like, all right, robot, let's see how you do. And the clip is garbage.
Right.
It's like nonsensical. They took clips and they jumped them all together. So it's like jump cutting and everything.
You
And I'm
haven't
like,
been
yeah.
doing that lately.
No, I stopped because it
Oh.
was ineffective, and I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time. Even if I've spent the money, I'm not going to continue to spend money and time on something that just it doesn't resonate. It doesn't do anything.
Right.
So sure, I could go out and I could make clips and I could have it make 20 of them. And then, by the way, then it's like, oh, you haven't used this file that you paid for in 60 days, so we're going to delete it. And I'm like, whoa. I paid for this service. You leave my shit alone. That's my shit, right?
Yeah.
And so, and every time I talk to these folks, and this is all AI related. Every time I talk to these folks, they'll send me an inbound robot email. Hey, this is Tony. Love to hear what you think. And I'm like, hey, Tony, I'm not too happy with the product. I probably won't buy it next year, which is true. I haven't. There are some things I'd love to talk about, but I never seem to be able to get anybody on the phone. And then I get like an automated response, and then I get hey, this is your trouble ticket. And I'm like, I didn't ask for a trouble ticket. I
just like to talk to somebody. I know.
Yeah, I like to talk to somebody. And you guys said you wanted to talk to me. And so, I'm glad to do it. And then they'll come back a week later when their trouble ticket fails and like, bling, talk to Pete. And it's like, hey, this trouble ticket, should we shut this thing down? And I'm like, I don't care what the fuck you do with it, because you guys can't just grab a phone and set up a call so I can explain to you why I'm not mad. But there's no way I'm spending money again on this product that I end up doing the work anyhow. So I may as well just learn to enjoy that process and find what I think is a great clip and write my own text. And so, sure, do they save me some time? Yeah, but they didn't give me a product that's worth my time.
Yeah. It makes tremendous sense. I think a lot of what's going on in the AI space right now is akin to cargo cults. You familiar with this?
No.
So cargo cults, think of a primitive tribe in South America. That's where these were happening, by the way. By the way, Dan, I take your vote, and I'm gonna hit you offline with the answers to your detailed questions.
No, he's gonna vote for me for president. That's what he's saying.
But I'm vice president, or he's vice president. I don't know which one it is.
I'll give you a job in the cabinet.
Yeah, all right, it's fine. I'll be the AI czar. It's good. Cargo cults. So we've got these primitive tribes, and like the people, like we advanced civilization come in our airplanes and we drop crates, cargo, or we land and we deliver cargo, and it's got all sorts of cool stuff. It's got packaged rice. It's got like processed coffee, whatever they want. Maybe it's got a radio or something. And then the funding runs out and we leave them, and they're like, hey, we want the cargo to come back. That was fun. So what they do is they make their best representations of these airplanes, like with wood and whatever they can gather. They like build little model airplanes on the makeshift runways, and they think if we build these, then the cargo will come back. If the cargo doesn't. So a lot of times what's going on with AI, let's see if I complete this analogy right, is these engineers will build something, and you're supposed to think, oh, that's cool because you built that, not because it actually works, right? Like we got all this stuff. Oh yeah, I got you a transcript. Look, I pieced together this video. Well, it's garbage. Well, that doesn't matter. Oh, look, I've got a ticket system. You can talk to us and give us feedback and everything else. If you use our ticket system, we can look at your account and everything. You're too confused to do it. You don't do it, and then they don't sit and wonder, hey, did we do something wrong? No, they'll just keep building this these airplanes. these fake
Yeah.
airplanes, hoping you'll come back and be a good customer with your cargo. Give them money. Yeah, no, you won't.
Yeah. Get an answer to a question out of Twitter if they're stuck on something. I'm saying Twitter. You guys don't know X, whatever.
Yeah.
If you've got a problem with your account, good luck. They don't have the ability to fix those
Yeah,
things. They'll send you to a bunch of articles. Like, did this article help you? Like, no. Yeah. That's why I'm trying to call somebody.
Look, Leon fired all the people, right? Leon, isn't that what Trump calls him now? Leon.
Yeah.
But okay. I mean, that's and that works for him, and that works for the Twitter audience for the most part.
Sure.
I mean, I see where you get frustrated with it because you're trying to engage with it. I know if you were a bigger media account, you were a bigger media personality, they would probably bend over backwards a little bit, or maybe Elon would tweet at you and say, "Hey, I give you somebody for 20 minutes." Like he did with Don Lemon, right? I'll give you somebody for 20 minutes to get you set up, and then Don's upset because he doesn't have a hit show on Twitter like he was promised. Right? Well, okay, no, you don't have that because he's not doing that. But it does suck when you're trying to use these products and nobody wants to talk to you. And it's not that you're like some poor person who needs a lot of, you're high cost, who needs a lot of support. You're somebody who can bring a lot of value to their platform, and they don't care because they think everybody who can bring value to their platform will go through their little rope line and do things their way.
So let me ask you. So again, let's bring this back to the AI thing. So Twitter wants me to advertise, with them. They ask me all the time, right? And they even have someone call me. And look, I don't mind that, and I want Twitter to work well. And then I've told them there's an account of someone I know. They're stuck. They can't get their subscriptions, so their business is stalled because your business isn't a good business for doing business with.
Mm-hmm.
I love to throw the same word and the same thought. And so I'm like, I won't move an inch until you guys fix that. TikTok, they can't fix it. And then, they still come back like, hey, because they get reminded, talk to Pete, and they talk to me. And I'm like, again, this guy's account is still stuck. Well, he probably did something wrong. No, you guys did something wrong. He's stuck. Have someone unclick that radio button or whatever it is and move forward. And so, and I'm using X, and I'm being hard on X. They can take it. But whether it's Google or Facebook or any company that wants to get further away from me, the business owner, I'm just not that worried about. I'm not going to spend my time desperately trying to build a following on Instagram when Instagram refuses to do anything to help me. So
right. And then
it's competition for our attention and money. And so AI, I think, makes it even harder because now I'm even less inclined to go to, like, we're pushing this out on Instagram, right? If I publish 100 shows on Instagram, is that going to make a farther difference is that going to be a tray of ice on Berryessa in the summertime? No. Right. And so I'm not going to spend my time doing that. I'm going to spend time where there's actual opportunity, right? And so it doesn't matter how much AI you bring to the table, it's not valuable.
And Pete, you know that I am one of your biggest fans of this show and have been for a while. Even though I lost like 40 pounds, I'm still pretty big. I'm not as big as, say, Dan White. That guy's a big fan. Right. But, I'm still one of your biggest fans. I appreciate the content you do. I'm always trying to help you, find a way to do it and whatever else, because I believe your content is way, way more engaging, way more interesting, even for things I don't care about, than most of the stuff that makes its way through the filters on Instagram. The stuff that gets through there, those creators who like go through the ropes and do it, the Instagram way and manage to get it up and manage to get it working and manage to get paid. Something about it, it's not good content.
And their funnel is fucked up, right? Because you see what does make it, and you're like, "Have that made it?" Okay,
yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Should we do a demo?
Sure. Yeah. If you wanted to, let's set it up first.
Yeah, I am set up. So I need to share a screen, present.
You need to set up what the demo is going to be, so we all know what we're going to see.
I see, like an audio thing. I think what I'd just like to show you very simply is this. You think of AI as chat. I, as a practitioner, think of it as completion, and I want to just show you that. And then I think I'd like to. Maybe we could explore trying to write a book real quick.
Okay.
So
right. You have the ability to share, right? So
I do.
I'm giving you permission for that. Good.
So I'm going to hit share screen, and then it's going to ask me which screen, and I'm going to do window, and I'm going to do this window.
Smart.
All right. Yeah, I have a whole tirade on this as well, which is sharing windows and stuff. So this is a virtual machine running on my laptop, which you see my finger in the camera. I'm pointing at you. It's all the same machine here. I'm not using, giant computing resources to do this. And on this virtual machine, I'm going to start an LLM called Mistral 7B. Was that Mistral? No, I think this is this is Mistral. Okay, Mistral's another company. This is fine. I meant to do Meta, but we'll do Mistral. That is fine. So this is a user interface that I wrote for AIs. It's a little bit different than what you're used to. You're used to going and seeing a chat interface where you say something and something says something back to you. Well, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to start typing, and I'm going to say, I like big dogs, and then I'm going to hit return, and it's going to start typing. Look at that. I like big dogs, and I can't deny, I cannot lie. Okay, so then we get into sort of the rap thing, and then it'll start to get into more of a story thing. And okay, I'm going to stop it here. I'm going to undo it, and I'm going to have it do it again. And the reason I'm going to have it do it again is I want you to see that it'll do something a little bit. It didn't do something a little bit different. Let's okay, it did that when a big dog walks in with an attitude. All right, fine. Let's do it again. And okay, so here now we're off on story right away. And so what I'm trying to show you with this is that it will give you different answers. And then here's another thing I want to show you. Let's just stop right here. We're stopped right here, and I'm going to have it start again. But I've always been A, and let's have it generate a few words for us.
Right.
Big dog person. If I had a couple of small dogs, but I'll stop it there. I'm going to undo, and I'm going to have it start from here again. And you'll see that it'll go a totally different direction. I've had a couple of big dogs that were rescues. It doesn't talk about the small dogs now. So what's happening is it's generating, it calls them tokens, but think of tokens as words. They're actually portions of words. It generates one token at a time from everything that it had to lead up to that. And the way it generates that token is it has a whole bunch of possible tokens that it could generate. And it picks a likely token. And the likeliness of the token comes from training the model. And when you train the model, you basically say, hey, when I've seen all these tokens in a row, what's the probability of seeing this next one? And so there's all these tokens. There's 30,000 tokens or whatever that it has access to in this particular model. And it doesn't go to each of those 30,000 and decide, okay, which one has the best weight here. It picks a few, it samples from a few, and it says, which is the best of the few that I sampled? And that's why you get this random behavior. And that's why you get these answers. And that is all, whatever you're doing with AI right now, that is LLM based, and that's basically everything. Whatever you're doing with AI, it all comes back to this. Everything else is, it's a sleight of hand in a good way. It's an illusion. It's crafted so that you think something's good. So let's say that we wanted to do chat. All right, here is a chat between, I do this often, Pete, because, you don't answer the phone. So I want to know, what was Pete going to think about this stuff? And so I will type Brad. Hi, Pete. I'm going to go over here to my settings, and I'm going to have this thing called a stop word. And the stop word here is going to be Brad. Now, watch this. It's going to try to complete this conversation. Pete, hey, Brad, how's it going? And then it gets to Brad, and it says, okay, your turn, Brad. Great. I'd like to be on your podcast. I typo a lot, too, when I type to you here, Pete. Okay, and I'm going to let it go. And it's going to say something, and then I'm going to show you the magic here. What would you like to talk about? Okay, Pete, I'm really tired of chatting with you.
That's a hallucination.
But I need to figure out where this conversation is going. So I'm going to turn off the stop word, and I'm going to just let it go. And it's going to fill in my part now too, along with your part. And we'll find out what we're going to talk about. Oh, importance of mental health in the workplace. Dude, we could talk about that several
That's
episodes.
a great topic. This is something that's often overlooked, right? Yeah. And then it says, I've struggled with mental health issues in the past because, I drink a lot of milk. And so then it goes on and on. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important. So it's a bunch of platitudinal, banal kind of conversation, right? But it is a conversation.
And what it's doing What the LLM is doing, what it wants to do is it wants to complete the thought. It wants to complete the sentence, complete the paragraph, complete the conversation. That's all it wants to do. It's kind of like it's kind of like if you have a little male dog, all he wants to do is hump his bed. All right. All the LLM wants to do is complete things. And then we use that instinct that it has, or we feel it's an instinct. That's anthropomorphizing it a little bit, but we use that tendency and then we build these illusions on it. Like I showed you how to build the illusion of chat. That is how chat works in Chat GPT. It has stop words. That's all it does.
Right.
Otherwise, it's the same algorithm. It's just got different weights, a whole bunch more parameters available to Chat GPT than I have here in a virtual machine on my little laptop.
Right. Ta-da. And again, the virtual machine on your little laptop is also private, so no one else is gaining access.
Nobody else knows. Right. So if I wanted to do sex chat with you, Pete, here, nobody would know. Right. Which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. So let's just use a real life example here. So one of the things that I had to do, you go on a combat patrol and I'd get all my notes, have all these conversations, and then I'd have to sit down and figure out what it all meant. But the first thing I had to do was tell everybody what had happened. What had happened was, so you do a basic who, what, where, when, why kind of breakdown, like this is why we were there, this mission was this, and all that kind of stuff. Right? Very boilerplated basic things, but you still have to kind of enter that, right? And then it's what conversation was had and what did I find out? And you start to try to write that. It's really hard to write to the audiences because they're vertical and they're horizontal at the same time, these audiences. Sometimes they're international. And so you're trying to write in very clear prose, very short. You don't say things like, I saw a dog walking on all fours, because now you're like, I don't know if they'll understand this. You have to slow down and write very concise sentences, right? So
you watching me do this here?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So let me tell you what this is really good at, because it knows nothing. Remember I told you before, sometimes it knows nothing about what you want to write about, but you could have it write something and you could fill in a couple of details and it can become a little bit
better. Press pause real quick and tell everybody what this thing is writing. Tell everybody what this thing is writing.
I started with, here is my patrol report for Base Echo on August 28th. Okay, again, I know nothing about what Pete does other than what he's told us on podcasts. I've forgotten more than I even remember. So I just thought, okay, what's one of these things look like? And it's going to start writing it. And it came up with a patrol leader. It was not Pete Turner. But when I just backtracked and I put Pete's name there, as he's the patrol leader, and maybe patrol number one. I don't want to, be accused of stolen valor or anything, but it would be cool to be along with your patrol. So why not? I'm going to put my name in here, and we're going to let it generate some more. And it'll generate something that looks like a report. It will have none of the details of what happened correct. But I can go back and fill those in and have it fill in some more details. And you saw I was working interactively with this. By the way, have you ever seen anybody use Chat GPT that way?
No, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't. It would not be hard for me to say no to that question, no matter what it was, right? Because I just have only
this is a
little bit. But
this is a pretty unique way of working with LLMs. Is actually working at the completion level rather than working at the chat level.
Talk to me about what that means, though. Like, explain that in ways that is less expert and more Pete.
Well, I tried to do that with the example of the small dog humping his bed. That's what the dog does. Well, that's what this thing does. It has a bunch of words and it wants to complete the thought, complete the sentence. Here we have a bunch of words that are arranged into a patrol report. And then it has some details along the way, like patrol leader Pete Turner. I keep wanting to call you Pete Townsend for some reason. And then patrol member number one, Brad Hutchings. And then, okay, we'll fill in some real names here and we'll let it keep going. But when I restart it from some point, it's going to try to generate, what it thinks is going to go into this report from that point. And I can add some details as we go. I just back up and fix a detail. Here's what this thing does really well, because this obviously wasn't there. It wasn't taking your notes. Remember you said, hey, can I put 2 days worth of my notes in this thing and get a summary and a report? And I would tell you, put none of your notes. Just have it generate a report for some activity. As you go along, fill in some of the details and have it amplify the details as it further generates stuff. And that's how you can work with the LLM to generate a report that it knows nothing about. Isn't that weird? I mean, but isn't that cool too?
Yeah. And I don't know how useful in this case, but I think if you can find a case where it makes sense for you,
Yeah. So I'm working with a customer. I'm working with a customer now who's doing proposals to their Indian tribe, Native American tribe entities and he's using this to write proposals to them, because a proposal is a really, really difficult thing to write for his business. And so what we've been working on is just, okay, what's the way that I can do this and start with nothing and end up with a good proposal? And we might write a paragraph here, we might outline the proposal, or we might just let it, start writing, and then we stop it and redirect it as we need to and fill in some details. And that's working pretty well.
So we have this case of creating a patrol report, and obviously it's not there. I'm going to have to do the work of explaining what happened and everything else.
You're definitely going to do the work. You're going to do some work here for sure.
Right. But what is a potential use case that we're not thinking of? Like, what's something where you're like, if I had a dream client and they showed up, they're like, oh, I actually know how to help you. What is that? What business is that going to be? And what do they do?
And Pete, this is it. This is the funny thing. This is what I'm trying to help you with, is I'm trying to help you say, you know what, this, for me, as a computer programmer, if you will, what this is like for me is sample code. Sample code, there's all sorts of technologies that come along every year. And then you as a developer, you're like, hey, I want to put that in my product. How do I do it? Well, you can go and you can read the API, the documentation, everything else, and it'll take you all night. You'll never remember any of it. And you sit down with a blank piece of paper and you try to make it work. Or if that company has done a good job, they've created some samples, and you can go and you can steal some sample code. You can paste it into what you're doing, and you can kind of continue from there. And suddenly you have something working really, really quickly. Well, that's the process used here. It's just your sample code here was, how do I write a report? And it has, by the way, I could start it 10 different ways on writing a report. Let me show you. I actually have a feature in this to do this. I can copy this, and then I can just start it generating a report again, and it'll do a different kind of report for me. This one's kind of the same. But okay, so this is more fill in the blank instead of giving me names and stuff. So I'd come back and fill in the blank. He's a little more focused on flashlights and first aid kits and M16 rifles than the last one. Let me copy him here. I can come back here. I can mouse over this. Oh, I didn't paste that last report there, but I can mouse over this and see what these are. So I might generate 10 of these things and then be able to look, hey, this is what this looks like.
So I'm working on my projects. I'm making this documentary about Felipe Alou. I'm working on telling the barge fight story. And people are always wanting, like, hey, I need a document of some kind of product, right? And there's all kinds of products in the industry that you make, but one of them's like a pitch deck, right? And there's all these things that I have, even though I'm like, I am the pitch deck. I hate making slides because you're going to talk to me anyhow, but whatever. So how many times have you made slides
how many times have you made a slide deck, say, for, and I know you're a Canva guy, and that makes it kind of easy to do. You're not a Canva guy anymore.
I'm a PowerPoint. I've never been a Canva guy. I'm a PowerPoint guy. Yeah. And really what I am is here, if I have to, honestly, this is 100% true what I do. If someone's like, hey, we need a slide for your presentation. And I'm like, I'm going to send you a blank slide. And they're going to say, well, hold on. You need to have a slide. And I'm like, I'm going to send you a slide. It will be blank. Do you want me to go through that process? Because I don't need a slide. And then they'll be like,
I forgot I'm talking to Pete. I'm talking to Pete. Here's how I do it. Somebody says they need a slide, and I've done this 20 times before. I've got 20 decks. None of them are right for what they wanted. And so I go on, I make my 21st deck, and it's ready for the next guy to ask and me to discover, hey, that's not what you wanted. I'm going to make another one. So I iterate a lot on these things.
Right. Well, this is kind of my point about this whole thing, right? Where I don't do it. Like, you're going to tell me you don't like my slide anyhow, so I'm just going to send you a blank one, and you make what you want. I don't give a fuck what you put my name on it, And so I have literally submitted a blank slide and said, if you want to change something, you let me know,
This is a true story. I've heard it before. We've been down the same conversation path before where I'm like, yeah, Pete, don't you just make these up as you need to go? No, I don't. I sent him a blank slide. I'm like,
Well, but this is kind of the whole thing where, like, I don't need to do this, right? I don't need to explain that. I don't need to have something on the wall. I'm not going to read them a slide. And so if I need an illustration, sure, I'll put it in there. But if I don't, but with the movie thing, I do need to create illustrations. I do need to create some text so that'll augment what I'm saying, right? Because this is a bigger, more nebulous thing because it doesn't actually exist. I didn't actually go on the patrol in this case, right? So How do you take something like this and begin to create text? Does it know who Felipe Alou is? Does it know the three critical elements of the story? I'll have to teach it that, right? And so how much time do I spend making this thing? And would it follow a format? If I pulled up a format off the internet and said, okay, this is a pitch deck for a documentary, and we just follow that thing and build it from there, can it handle that kind of work?
Well, you could do that. I think the more free form kind of thing of let's just start with, let's see what it knows and let's fill in details that it doesn't know. So I can't spell synops because I'm stupid. And I probably misspelled Felipe Alou's name, probably misspelled it there, but let's just see where it starts.
I love it. Okay, so Act 1, and the movie opens with the yeah. So now it's just describing.
So it knows who he is, right? It's got some knowledge here. This is great.
Yeah.
And none of this is guaranteed to be true. It can all be complete lies. It could be the wrong teams. It could be even the wrong themes of facing racism and discrimination. Did he? I don't know his story enough. You know it a lot better. Is that important?
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe it's not.
Right.
Let's just let it do this thing and let's let it see what it is. And then we can go back and we can correct this thing and we can have it carry on. We can have it develop Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
This becomes input for the next stage.
And could I not just dump the whole book into its memory and say, I need you now to create this?
We went through that. We went through that before, and it doesn't move the needle on it. That's the ice cube, the ice tray in Lake Berryessa thing. It really doesn't do that. It's good at English, and it's good.
Yeah.
The English it's been trained on has got these facts kind of, like intertwined. And so they become parameters in the model, and they're pretty good. I think if you read through it, you'd find 100 things that are wrong with these sentences, little details.
Yeah.
But it's kind of in the ballpark,
Right. Yeah.
And
and for the record, we understand that he didn't spell Felipe right. We get it. It's not the way he spells his name. We're not worried about that here. We're just showing the capacity for this thing. And we are throwing a lot of different things at your machine to kind of reveal what this thing can do, right? And there are some things. He actually did go on after retiring from baseball to manage in the minor leagues, and so you can use that. Maybe that doesn't make the story, but it is part of what happened, and it invented that, right? So
Pete,
that is pretty neat.
This machine, much like ChatGPT, just at a much larger scale, is an amazing bullshitter. And let's start with that. I mean, you ever been to a Toastmasters meeting? I used to go with my grandfather. An amazing bullshitter. He would pick up like little facts and here and there and stuff, and then start to weave them in, and then start to tell stories with them. He was very, very, very good at that. But he's a card player and a bullshitter. That's what he is. But how about compare that to somebody who won't even open their mouth and tell a story? And now you've got something sitting on your desktop that'll open its mouth and tell you a story, and you can start with it. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground, and I've tried to re-hit some of these points, because what we want it to do, what we're desperate for it to do, is not what it does, right? And you're showing that over and over again. But if you can find a use case for a bullshitter and someone who can maybe get you started on something. Hey, I lost Brad. Hey, everybody, it's Pete. I don't know where Brad went. He's gone. We'll get Brad back in a second. If you guys want to support the show, you can always go to the Break It Down Show website, breakitdownshow.com, click on the PayPal link, and then you just go, hey, Pete, I see you're working hard. I'll give you $5 a month, $10 a month. That's how you support me. Brad is back. So if you want to hire a bullshitter, you want to find some use case where it gets you started and helps you with the brainstorming process, which I think it's great at doing that. Those are some great cases. What else do you like? Like any company that wants to try to hire you to help them, what are you bringing to them? And I know, like we talked about this, it's hard to describe because every company is different. You don't know where they're at in their process, where they've already gotten ahead of you and they're going in the wrong direction. And your biggest job is to go, whoa, come back this way. Hold on.
My biggest job is to be able to say no, and for them to trust the no comes from, it's not that I'm not interested. I'd love to do this stuff. The no comes from bringing safety to you. So you don't bring unsafe things upon yourself, unsafe, expensive things. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give you a level of safety as you approach AI that you can approach it comfortably and know that you're going to do something, intellectually sound. You're going to do things that treat your customers right. Like we talked about this with the customer service bots. This is the first thing I tell you. You're going to replace your customer service people. If you're my client, you're going to replace your customer service people with that. You know what we're going to do? We're going to get in the car. We're going to go to my local McDonald's, which still has that damn voice. They can't get rid of it. He's the first thing you hear. And we're going to go through the drive-thru, and you're going to hate him as much as I hate him, because you're going to experience it. And then you're going to say, hey, do I want to do that to my customers? I don't want my customers to hate me. That's the kind of thing that I can bring to a client, to help them make good decisions with this stuff. And you have to make good decisions with it. If you make the decisions that everybody's selling you, you're going to look like an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe take them down to Chuck's for a burger and say, which experience is better for you?
Exactly.
And it's like, you know what? It's way better at Chuck's. I talked to Chuck myself. I like that dude. I'd come back.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Better food, better engagement. So how do we use AI in this case? Maybe AI is creating a new hilarious menu every day.
Why not? I'll tell you what I absolutely love it for. If there's anybody that's in the education space, of course, this isn't, compliant with whatever Common Core curriculum standards you have and everything else. But let's pull this back to like the root of education and the root of, say, childhood literacy. Your kids need things to read. This thing can generate an interesting, contextually appropriate, customized, fun thing for them to read every 5 minutes, let alone every day. We've never had anything like that. We have, you and I have a friend, David, who's an author. He writes some children's books. Yeah. David can't keep up with this. I could take David's format and I could teach you how to, obviously I can't do the artwork and stuff like that. It's just the text, but I could teach you how to create a new version of his book every day for your kid. Like, how amazing would that be? Then your kid's got something, new to read. My parents were like one of the few parents that like really took literacy. They made it important. I had a bookshelf. My sister and I had a bookshelf. They had all the children's classics and everything else. I was an avid reader as a kid. I read all the books. I ran out. Now what? Now what do I do? Now I'm going to garage sales trying to get the old, if you know the real old school, they're sort of gold, hardbound. Hardy Boy books, right? Mm-hmm. Hardy Boy mystery books. The real old school ones, not the ones with the pictures, the blue with the pictures, right? I'm going to garage sales doing that because I'm looking for new material to read. There's no kid in the world today that should have to do that. And I mean, I was like somebody who was like looking for stuff to read. Now, if you're not that engaged because there's not anything interesting for you to read, this is a great place to start. Very inexpensive too. Yeah.
Homeschool, right? Hey, I need to create a scenario, and really with fiction, anything's possible. I need Ernest Hemingway to have a dinner with fill in the blank, Mother Teresa,
right,
and see what happens, right? And then the world is your oyster. I talked yesterday on the show with a guy named Edwin. He's a fantastic musician. He teaches kids about music, does lessons. He does a school program where he goes to schools and everything else. And I was talking about like a concept album I've always had in my head, right? Look, I'm not a musician enough to do these kind of things, but you could take AI and do this. And so you take a single event, like that Johnny Cash song, "Don't Take Your Guns to Town." And if you wrote 9 songs, 10 songs from all different points of view about this one event, you could really tell an amazing story, and you could use AI to help you with the concept generation.
Write the lyrics. It does great for writing song lyrics, blues songs, country songs. You know what else is good at? I like, because I strum the guitar a bit. Just give me a chord progression I can work with.
Yeah.
Give me a happy chord progression. Give it to me. And I can play it in a happy way. Now, can you give me 4 chord progressions that I can use between a verses, chorus, a bridge, and an outro, and it'll give me 4 that work together, under the same key. That's great. Well, now can you give me chord progressions in 2 different keys that could work together that I can transition to? Yes, it can do that too. If you ask it,
that's amazing.
Try.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it may not be the answer, but it'll get you pretty damn close, right? And so you can use that chord progression. No, that's great, man. It's a fantastic use case. Hey, look, we've been talking for about an hour and 15 minutes.
We have.
So what else do you want to cover? I think this has been really interesting to me to learn, again, like it's easy to get scared of this stuff. It's easy to say it's not going to work. And for me, I don't know when it's going to help me, right? Because a lot of this work I'm just going to have to do myself. And if I'm going to do it, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to hire a machine to do it so that I have to do it anyhow. So that still doesn't make sense for me. But there's a lot of companies out there who are further along in the business process that need some of this kind of help. And so I appreciate you talking about that. But what do you want to say in closing?
Let me say this in closing. This is a messy process. Nobody knows what the good applications are right now. Now, they'll pretend to know, and they'll sell you stuff, and they'll say, hey, if you sign up with me, we're going to do these things. And some of these things, by the way, are not going to pass Brad's illusion test. They're going to be like snake oil, not like cool card tricks. Okay. So there's a lot of that going on. If you want to see me discovering these things and working them out, the best thing to do is to find me on LinkedIn, Brad Hutchings. Just search for it. You'll see my mug. You'll see my smug smile, and that's what I do on a daily basis. If you'd like to see my collection of things that I've discovered and refined, that's at demomachine.net. That includes these LLMs that'll run on your Mac desktop, your Windows desktop, or if you're really adventurous, a Linux desktop. And I'm happy to. What am I selling them for right now? $50 for a collection of 10 of these. The collection will grow as more of these become popular. I make it easy for you to run them, so you don't have to be a nerd like me to figure it out.
Yeah. So this is what
how much hair I've lost. How much hair I've lost doing this. I'm just saying. Okay.
I'm trying to help you out.
I know.
I'm going to talk directly to the camera here. So if you were in business and you're making an AI decision or preparing to do that, you need to hire Brad to come in. And so you can have Brad say no. And that's what you're going to pay him to do, so you can go in the right direction, because what we get sold and what's actually useful to you may not be the same thing. And so having someone like Brad to go, hold on, that doesn't work that way. Let me show you how this works. I think it's invaluable what you do, Brad. And, every time we talk about this stuff, I learn new stuff. I learn more about like how AI works and the illusion stuff that you're talking about. I get that because I see the illusion part of it, and there are a lot of magic tricks. It's neat, but at some point I don't need a magician. And other points I do. So I appreciate you helping me try to understand that.
Two last
Please,
things.
and don't talk about your hair. Yeah.
No, I won't. Two last things. One, if you're my client, you're going to have conversations like this with me that go an hour and a half, 2 hours to help you get your head around what this stuff is. That's what I do. That's where the value is. And the second is I'm Brad Hutchings, and I approve this message.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours